Sometimes, the truth does not begin with anger. Sometimes it begins with silence, with people sitting down and asking themselves a simple question. What exactly happened here, and why does it feel so wrong? That is the place many Nigerians are standing today as they look at the life sentence given to Nnamdi Kanu. Not shouting first, not protesting first, but thinking deeply. Because something about this judgment does not sit well with the conscience. When you listen carefully to those who followed the trial closely, especially lawyers who understand the law from inside, one thing becomes clear. This case was not built on physical acts of violence. It was not built on evidence of weapons, bombings, or attacks carried out by Nnamdi Kanu himself. The judgment rested mainly on words, speeches, broadcasts made from outside Nigeria, opinions spoken loudly, emotionally, sometimes harshly, but still words. And that alone raises a serious question. In a country facing real violence, real bloodshed, and real terrorism in many places, is this really how justice should be applied? Many legal minds have said it clearly. This looks less like criminal justice and more like political punishment. When the court focuses more on speeches than actions, when it stretches the meaning of terrorism to fit political expression, then the line between law and politics becomes very thin. That is why people keep saying this is not ordinary criminality, it is political criminality. It is the state using the law to silence a voice, not to stop violence. This is not the first time something like this has happened. History is full of examples where governments used courts to crush political opponents instead of addressing the real issues they raised. Names like Nelson Mandela come up not because the situations are exactly the same, but because the pattern feels familiar. A man speaks for his people, the state feels threatened. The law is then stretched to break him. Years later, the same state begins to admit that maybe it chose the wrong path. What makes this case even more painful is that it does not solve the problem it claims to solve. Locking up Nnamdi Kanu for life does not erase the anger in the southeast. It does not heal the feeling of exclusion. It does not answer the long-standing complaints about fairness, representation, and justice. Instead, it deepens the wound. It sends a message that dialogue is useless and that power will always win over reason. That is a dangerous message for any country. Those who spoke during this discussion made one thing very clear. You cannot solve a political problem with only handcuffs and prison walls. You can silence a man, yes, but you cannot silence an idea that lives in millions of hearts. Every time the government chooses force over dialogue, the distance between the state and the people grows wider. Trust breaks down, hope disappears. And when hope disappears, tension rises. There is also the issue of fairness. Many Nigerians see bandits, kidnappers, and people involved in open violence being treated with negotiations, amnesty, or soft language. Yet here is a man whose main offense is speech, receiving the harshest punishment possible. That contrast is impossible to ignore. It makes people feel that justice in Nigeria is selective. And once people believe justice is selective, the authority of the law itself begins to collapse. The call being made by many reasonable voices is not for chaos. It is not for violence. It is not for burning down the country. It is for wisdom, for maturity, for a political solution that looks beyond punishment and asks hard questions. Why are people agitating? What went wrong? What can be fixed? These are not weak questions. They are the questions strong nations ask when they want peace to last. If the government truly wants unity, then it must show that it can listen, not only command. It must show that courts are places of justice, not tools of fear. It must show that no group is being targeted or punished because of who they are. Because the truth is simple. A judgment that increases anger and alienation cannot bring peace, no matter how legally polished it looks on paper. What is happening now is bigger than one man. It is about the future direction of Nigeria. Will this country continue to respond to political disagreement with punishment, or will it finally learn that inclusion and dialogue are stronger than repression? The answer to that question will shape the next generation. Many people are watching, not just in the southeast, not just among IPOB supporters. Nigerians everywhere are watching because they know that when justice fails one person today, it can fail another tomorrow. And that is why this conversation will not end. Not because people love trouble, but because people love justice. And justice, when delayed, denied, or politicized, has a way of demanding attention until it is finally done right.
Both the verdict and the sentence came as a huge surprise to me. First of all, this is a classic case of someone being convicted solely on words he had uttered from elsewhere, not even from Nigerian soil. For instance, the judge reeled out what was purported to be broadcasts made by Nnamdi Kanu from his location in the UK during the EndSARS protests. And the judge relied or pivoted on that as one of the bases upon which he granted the conviction. But guess what? A lot of people died during the EndSARS. A lot of them were innocent citizens. Notably, a lot were massacred at Lekki Toll Gate. And the EndSARS report from Lagos State, mainly, and from Abia State, never indicted Nnamdi Kanu or any member of IPOB or anything IPOB. But you see, the judge just went too far in extrapolating that EndSARS incident and blaming it solely on Nnamdi Kanu and not on any overt act, any physical act that he committed on the soil of Nigeria, but solely on speeches or broadcasts he made or utterances he might have made from his location in the UK. So that one is number one. Number two is that the judge also made references to utterances Nnamdi Kanu made in the United States as far back as 2014, before the World Igbo Congress event. That was 9 years ago. And then, just a statement that one could say was mere puffery. We need guns, we need this and all that. And then suddenly, all of a sudden, 9 years later, you said you now granted a conviction on the claim that that statement led to the death of someone in Nigeria. You see, they have thousands of IPOB or so-called IPOB, alleged IPOB members in detention, and none came forward. They never extracted any confession, which was tendered in court, linking Nnamdi Kanu's utterances of speeches or broadcasts to any actual violence or crime or act of terrorism in Nigeria. None whatsoever.
Okay. I will come back to you in a minute, but thank you for setting out that stall. Let me come to you, Honorable Etana Bene. I hope I'm getting your name right. Based on what you're hearing from Aloy Ejimakor, the barrister, as well as what I presume you saw in court today, are you feeling distinctly queasy about this verdict?
Well, thank you for having me. Ordinarily, I'm not too surprised, based on the events, of how this case started, By the way, I'm a lawyer also, so I kind of understand how, it has come to this point. However, for me, criminality against the state, I try to separate it into different forms. You have economic criminality against the state. We're talking about corruption and all those other things. Social criminality, we'll be talking about murder, kidnapping, arson, and so on and so forth like that. Then we also have political criminality. This area is very wide. It's very wide, depending on how you see it. The actions of certain group of persons, tend to undermine, codified laws of the state. It's what they call all this subversion and all those things, like that. But you see, it is not generally acceptable by all the parties concerned. If a group of persons feel for reasons best to their interests, says this is how they feel, if you tell them at that point that they are committing crime against the state, they will not accept it. They will rather want you to take out what is making them, react, in that form, for you or for everybody to say, yes, a crime has been committed. I don't want to go far into many examples. If not, I'll be talking about, why some people say there's genocide somewhere, and some people say, no, there's no genocide, somewhere. So you that is feeling it, So most political criminality issues, it's not today. It started many years ago. Then Nelson Mandela, they went through such trials, Nkrumah, even in Nigeria, even the perceived winner of our June 12th election, was convicted based on, political criminality. So for me, when we get into the topic of political criminality, my first response to handling this matter is also political, not through the legal processes. All these, our forefathers, Jaja of Opobo, great Nana of Ishekiri, Oba Overami, they opposed against the status at that time. They tried them, but we know that they were fighting for the liberation, of our people. So most political criminality, I rather suggest that we should explore every alternative dispute resolution techniques, before we begin to talk about, all this. I listened attentively to the judge as he was delivering, the judgment. I did not see anywhere that the gentleman was tried, for murder. If not, would have had people coming to testify that he killed this. The people who died would have been mentioned. All the first, second, third count, 4, 5, as it may be. The utterances, statements made. I was born in Saple. All this kind of talk, we have heard them many times. We don't take them, seriously. But in any case, all the things he said, were words that the state wants to hear. But I did not hear when he said that the issues in the Southeast can be resolved if they give him 20 minutes or a few days, to... Those are very positive words for peace.
But you would have thought that those words would be coming from him in his defense. And he, because the court relied essentially on the prosecution to get the case through, because Nnamdi Kanu was not putting forward that kind of defense, especially at the critical time when he needed to deliver that defense towards the end of the trial.
My brother Charles, see, there are some cases, you don't just bother yourself. If the state or the powers that be, are fixed, their mind, on it. Look,
and is that your assessment?
If you may recall,
is that your assessment that they fixed their minds on it?
The stories were on. If you may recall, the Ogoni 9, at a particular point, Gani Fawemi had to withdraw, from that, case. And ditto so many other instances like that. If you feel you are not getting, judgment the way you like, why continue?
Right. Okay.
Even in elections, there are people who manage to go through the trial of elections tribunal when they know that they are not going to get justice.
Well, let me ask you to hold on there. We're going to come back to you in a minute, and let me go to our off-site studio where Professor Abiodun Adeniyi has been patiently waiting. Thank you very much indeed, Prof, for staying with us. What are your initial reactions to the court's decision? Do you think it's a fair outcome or a politically motivated one?
Well, thank you very much, Charles. First, I never expected that the case would last this long, because my impression about the matter is, like the honorable member from Delta State said, quite political. I was imagining that long before now, it should have been taken out of court through what attorneys call nolli prosequi, so that the tension in the land or the disturbances in the Southeast, which existed prior to this time, will probably, have been mitigated on account of the release of somebody who has been identified as a symbol of the struggle, of the youths, or the sentiments that often resonates in that region, as the case could be. So ordinarily, I was expecting that it should have been resolved long before now. But there are also some other issues that kept arising. The personality in question appears to be somebody who is somewhat tempestuous. We'll keep seeing him in calls and in places appearing slightly unrepentant, as the case could be, consistently fairy. Things that could also continuously be irritating to the powers that are interested in prosecuting him. And of course, in the build-up towards the end, the business end of the trial,
lawyers who are trained in the business of defending and prosecuting, supposedly or were reported to have pulled out, from around him, that he was going to defend himself. This is somewhat strange, and I'm wondering, I started wondering how he was going to pull this through successfully. So what we are seeing now appears really predictable, but there's also a room, a reason for us to be gratified that the judge didn't give, a death sentence. Life imprisonment, still gives some more room for some window, some positive window. And of course, we also still know that higher courts are still there, the appeal court is there, the Supreme Court is also still there. There might be some room in the future for the judgment to be reversed or to be reviewed, as the case could be. And again, political solution is still a continuous thing, something that can still continue. The narrative is not ended yet. In the future, there might still be a need for us to have some consequential review, remembering that in recent years we have had government pardoning all kinds of people, So in the future we might see some government, without prejudice toward this appeal court, the Supreme Court will say in respect of Nnamdi Kanu. We might still have some political solution to the case, because what it means with Nnamdi Kanu remaining in prison is that, something is still missing in our nation-building efforts, we know what he represents, we know that he has sympathizers, and we know there's some powerful sentiment supportive of his cause. And if that cause, that sentiment is locked in prison, it still means that there's something that we haven't dealt with. So I still believe that in the future, whether in the short or long term, it's something that we need revisiting, as the case could be, Charles.
Prof, thank you very much indeed for that. So let me come to you, Barrister, because the professor mentioned there the rather perplexing occurrence during this trial that Nnamdi Kanu decided to fire his entire legal team. I mean, did he undermine his case by doing that? I mean, you were a member of that. In fact, you were at the forefront of his legal team. I mean, and then you were suddenly transformed into a consultant, and you couldn't even speak in court today on his behalf. I mean, did he undermine his own case by doing that?
No, he didn't. This is not the first time it has happened. You recall that Aloy had defended himself, if you go back to 1963 in history. At some point, Mahatma Gandhi defended himself in South Africa and even in India. And Nelson Mandela at some point defended himself. So did Martin Luther King. It's not unusual. This is a politically charged case. I think a strategic decision was made by him at some point that he probably would have done a better job than the lawyers. The lawyers do these cases within a very narrow confine of some decorum or some kind of behavior that is imposed on the lawyers that may sometimes may become prejudicial to the client in a politically charged case like this. This case wasn't a complex case. This case depended very much on a misguided prosecutorial policy that, pretty much zeroed in on Nnamdi Kanu, maybe because of the region he came from. That prosecutorial policy is not being levied, not words. We have a different prosecutorial or different counter-terrorism policy up in the north, which is engagement.
Well, let me come in there and ask.
The comparison may be too far afield.
Well, let me come in there.
It has to be an equal opportunity crime.
Indeed, but let me come in there and ask you this, because of the fact that you raised the issue of the Southeast. What are the potential security risks in the Southeast region in your assessment? Do you think this verdict will lead to increased tensions or calm in the region? Briefly.
Nnamdi Kanu is committed to non-violence. I also take this opportunity to appeal for calm, just like others have done. But whether people are angry or not, they are indeed angry, because there is a perception that this whole thing is sectionalized. That perception has to be removed, and the growing notion that he's being singled out, he's gaining currency. So how do we stop this? We stop it by the government changing its policy a little bit to, giving everybody equal opportunity, equal peril.
Right.
If you did something wrong, if you are from the north, they treat you as badly as they treat someone who did it wrong from the east or the west. But when you single a certain region and you levy an attritional prosecution against someone, it creates this perception. And of course, it kind of heightens the alienation of that very region and makes worse the very problem you're trying to solve.
Right,
the problem of inclusion and exclusion.
Right.
And this is what is driving the agitation. But having said that, calm is required because we still have opportunities laying ahead.
Indeed. Let me come to you, Honorable Benedict Etena-Bene. I mean, you are a member of the House of Representatives. You're a lawmaker. Does this verdict and sentence have implications for Nigeria's national unity and cohesion, bearing in mind that you're not from the southeast yourself?
Thank you very much. See, that is even the more reason why I am concerned, because I'm not from the southeast. But as a Nigerian, I'm beginning to think that the earlier we solve some certain problems, the better for us as a nation. This Boko Haram thing didn't just, come. It started at one point. Did we manage it well? No, it's snowballed into what we cannot control today. And there are so many other things happening in this country that I think, if you serve the plate well for one, you should serve for the others. This banditry has gone to an extent where states are beginning to negotiate with them. We didn't kill them. There are guys who come to a meeting in State House with machine guns wrapped all over their body, with army personnel in attendance. We are looking at them, we are negotiating, and yet these guys are not dropping, arms. This situation in the southeast, I'm not holding brief, for the gentleman, I have my reservations, but entirely what it's all about is about the interest of the southeast. Let me tell you, Charles, a quick one. I thought the live coverage of this judgment, I put my mind empty to see from both sides squarely. I thought it was going to serve a good purpose for Nigeria, but at the end of the day, I'm beginning to think, no, there are new issues that came out. One, you say the man said that my people should defend themselves against marauders, bandits from Futajelon, Mali, and certain naming other countries. Is that not the right thing to even do in Nigeria today? To tell your people if government cannot defend you, you should be able to tell your people. The only side that concerns Nigeria is that it mentioned Nigeria. But indeed, I will be happy if I see a brave man from my place saying that people from another country coming to invade Nigeria, killing our soldiers, killing our citizens, kidnapping, innocent girls, and we are looking at them, we are not doing anything about it. So let us not create a situation. I see most of his statements, the way he delivers it might not be okay by me, but I see his statement more of a very strong interest against, protecting the rights of his people. It happened in Niger Delta. The militants. And at the end of the day, a compromise was reached. Today, Nigeria is better off with that compromise. Because they are even helping to protect our oil facilities, and we are earning more money, from it. If we are gone in that same crisis mood, no. I take something away from this young man. He said, yes, there are crises everywhere, not only in the southeast. But let me go. Give me the opportunity. Let me go in 20 days or in 20 minutes, whatever. A desire to bring peace. I think we should not throw away, that option.
Indeed. Thank you, Honorable Etena-Bene. And let me come to you, Professor Adeniyi. Is there a risk that this verdict could galvanize support for the separatist movement, or will it weaken it, in your assessment?
I think it's just once more highlight the fact that legal justice may not be sufficient for nation building in a situation where social justice would rather suffice. Now, issues around us are far transcending Nnamdi Kanu. We are seeing terrorism being on the rise. We know what is happening in the last couple of days in this country, and it's becoming increasingly disturbing. Even as we speak, there's a session going on Nigeria in the U.S. Congress. We are on the global spotlight on account of our inability to manage our territory. Unfortunately, And this we do not know how it will pan out, considering how Trump has remained unapologetic on his threat to attack this country. And we know what this means. All this simply says, what it simply means is that maybe in the past we have been lethargic on how we have been handling our internal affairs. So the issues we have to deal with now goes beyond Nnamdi Kanu. Includes people, unrepentant terrorists once more, who are operating in the northern flank of the country and becoming increasingly vociferous, threatening the very foundation of the Nigerian nation state. We do not know what our future is going to look like. So I want to argue that perhaps the government should not prioritize legal justice above social justice in managing what appears like political crisis, political agitations, what appears like concerns, by ethnic groups, to highlight themselves within the fragile Nigerian nation state. And Nnamdi Kanu has come to represent a section of this country, believing that that section is rightly or wrongly underrepresented, underportrayed, within the body politic. The subtext, shouldn't be undermined. The subtle message that he represents, that he's trying to pass across, should not be ignored at the expense of legal justice.
Right.
We know how these things have happened in history, and we know how nations have tried to manage them, to grow out of continuous divisions, which Nigeria is still witnessing. So we need to focus more on the bigger picture, not on the narrow prism of individuals who are probably being the armor bearers, for what they consider to be the underrepresentation of their regions and groups or ethnicities, as the case could be, Charles.
Right. Those are very good points, Prof, and I'm glad you brought them up. So let me come to you, Barrister Aloy Ejimakor. There are still, of course, the political grievances, as Prof pointed out, and the Honourable Etana Bene as well. There are still the grievances that gave rise to all this agitation in the first place. I mean, what should the Nigerian government do next to address the root causes of the conflict and prevent further unrest? Because, for instance, today, and I think Prof mentioned this earlier as well, Nnamdi Kanu's conviction was actually mentioned in the US congressional hearing on Nigeria, which is taking place in the US Congress as we speak, and it was described as a travesty of justice, his conviction. Are you encouraged by that as his legal team prepares to go and appeal, and you assess all this from the point of view of the points he was trying to score?
Well, I don't know what went down.
Unfortunately, we've only got about a minute, so you have to really be pithy in your answer.
Well,
sorry, we're out of time.
I understand that led to all this, but the government can step in. When Aloy was convicted in 1963 for treason, that conviction was equally questionable, and it was overturned through a political decision that was, there's a debate whether it was Gowon or Ojukwu that made that decision, but in any case, it was a political decision that set him free. Nelson Mandela as well was convicted. He served time, long, 27 years. It was political decision of the South African government under de Klerk that set him free. So was that of Enahoro, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Mbazulika Amechi, and then when you go to the United States itself, Martin Luther King was convicted at one point.
Right, very briefly, we're almost out of time.
And again, Mahatma Gandhi. So now, this conviction, described as a travesty of justice, not just by the United States, by everybody. So it gives Nigerian government the opportunity to step in. Okay. If something went down, something went wrong, there's a new opportunity, a new window of opportunity to solve it. You see, America took a very weighty decision recently to intervene security-wise in this country, and they never mentioned the IPOB on Nnamdi Kanu anywhere. If they do, it's going to be in favorable terms, not in disfavorable terms.
Right. Okay, I've got to go.
Kind of points a way forward for Nigerian government to do that, so that this sense of exclusion and alienation in the South is running rife will be checked once and for all.